What's up, you guys? Sean Ross Sapp, Fightful.com. This is the Listen Ya Boy for April 22nd. A little less newsworthy than last Wednesday. I'll say that.
A little bit.
And that's somewhat a good thing, but we are here for the Listen Ya Boy, and we've got just tons of stuff for you guys. We got stuff all through the week. I interviewed Mike Bennett. That's up on the site right now. I interviewed Marino Tenaglia. That's on the site right now. Just tons of stuff, but we got other stuff to talk about, Jimmy. If you guys want to donate a super chat live at youtube.com/Fightful, we'll read your question or statement on the air. But hey, maybe you look around and you're like, oh, I want to ask several questions. Well, you can subscribe to FightfulSelect.com. My Q&A show goes up Thursday. You can ask as many questions as you want. Check it out. We have one right out of the gate, Jimmy Van.
Yep.
Anakin JMT says, hoping everyone at Fightful is staying safe and healthy, mentally as well as physically. Over 4 weeks without unemployment, you guys are keeping me mentally sane. Thank you so much. And that's why I'm running these shows on weekends now. I've had Alex do a couple. We're posting, I think, Fightful's Funniest Moments this weekend as well. I'm trying to give you all some weekend content every single weekend. But looks like WWE will be providing that in a couple weeks, Jimmy. Fighting through the headquarters. I have some exclusive news on that as well.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. The first thing I want to do is I hope that everyone is well during this time. I've read that the U.S. government has kind of dropped the ball on the subsidies a little bit.
Yeah.
I heard some dead people got money. I heard that corporations, apparently Shake Shack got $10 million they didn't even request.
Yep.
So they dropped the ball a bit. So hopefully people are able to get what they need and keep going.
I feel like I should get that $10 million.
Let's move on. So hopefully I'm not Disco Jimmy this week. I told Sean I replaced my Ethernet cable, whether I needed to or not. I did it. So hopefully there's no issues this week. One other thing I wanted to mention, I had promised a few weeks ago that if people wanted to send in their own Stupid People rendition of the song, that I would play it while we're from home here, doing things the way we're doing them. And I have one, and the last 2 weeks have been so nuts with news that I haven't gotten around to doing Stupid People.
Yeah.
But we're going to do it today, unless something breaks in the middle of this show. We're going to do it today, and so if anybody wants to submit their own rendition of the Stupid People song, hook up with Sean Ross Sapp, and if you don't want to do a video, we will just embed it into our own Stupid People video, which is what we're doing this week.
I appreciate you telling people they should hook up with me, Jimmy. It's really,
I'm here to help you and your wife,
Blue
Sean.
Chew, and now Jimmy Van just telling everybody, just hook up with Sean Ross Sapp.
New business model. We're going to have our own, Fightful, what do they call it, swap, left or right?
You'll be flying me and somebody who isn't my wife out to Toronto before long.
Maybe. So I want to start by talking about Howard Finkel. And this was almost a week ago now, but because we only do this on Wednesdays, this is my only chance to talk about it. Howard Finkel passed away last Thursday, April 16. He was 2 months shy of his 70th birthday. And, oftentimes in wrestling, Sean, and in sports, the question's thrown around, who's the greatest? Who's the greatest?
Yes.
Who's the greatest wrestler of all time? Who's the greatest manager of all time? And it's always a widely debated topic. When it comes to ring announcer, my opinion, there was Howard Finkel and there was everybody else.
Yes.
He was undoubtedly the best of all time at what he did. And I used to love watching the MSG shows. They used to run Madison Square Garden every month back in the day. And I used to get the MSG network on satellite in the late 80s, early 90s. And I used to love Finkel because during intermission of the show, they would announce the card for the next month's show. And Howard Finkel was great at building up the dramatics. He was great. It's like if he was talking about the evil heel who was going to challenge Hulk Hogan, he would slow down his words a little bit, and then he'd get to Hogan and then he would just get all boisterous. And Howard Finkel was the greatest. And I have one small personal regret about Howard Finkel, Sean Ross Sapp.
What's that?
I got married in 2014, and I had the idea when I got married of flying Howard Finkel in and having him announce the reception party. And I didn't look into it because I thought, he won't be able to do it. He's in bed with WWE and he's not going to be able to do it. So I didn't do it. And then 6 months later, I saw a video on social media where he did it for somebody.
Yeah.
And I thought, God damn, I could have done it. I didn't think he did.
He's the best of all time. I mean, let's be real. He's the reason why you hear UFC's Bruce Buffer or anybody go and new like that pronounced. That's him. He's the innovator. He did all that. He was a performer. He had a 2-year feud with Harvey Whippleman that stretched out over Memphis and WWF, and kept doing it until 2002. Not that feud, but he did one with like Lillian Garcia and one with Tony Chimmel, who very, very sad to hear that he was one of those that was furloughed last week as well.
Tony Chimmel was?
Yeah, that's what I heard. Unfortunately,
were they using him live events or?
I'm not sure if they were, what he was doing or what his role was there, but that I had heard that. I hope I heard it wrong is the thing, but Howard Finkel, man, he's the best, and he's one of those voices. For years, you would always hear the stat, he's the only person to perform at every WrestleMania, yada, yada, until they stopped that, until he stopped doing the Hall of Fame introductions. Oh, man. It's
you know something? He doesn't get enough credit. So they always talk about, Pat Patterson created the Royal Rumble, and you hear that all the time, that Pat Patterson created the Royal Rumble. Howard Finkel came up with WrestleMania.
Yes.
And you don't hear it very much, and I don't know why, because WrestleMania is even a bigger name. The only thing I can think of is because Pat Patterson came up with the concept of the Royal Rumble match, whereas Finkel came up with the name WrestleMania. But yeah, he was the greatest, and you never hear one bad thing about him. Everybody loved him. I know back in the day, Justin Roberts, when he wanted to break in as a ring announcer, he would call WWE's offices in Stamford, and he would get patched into Howard Finkel. And Howard Finkel always took his call.
Yeah.
Like everybody seemed to love him. So it's unfortunate, but he left a legacy behind. He's definitely the best at what he.
Oh, big time. And was one of when they had filmed that Legends House show well ahead of the WWE Network and all that. And I wish that we could have seen some more of that. I thought he was one of the more entertaining people that were used in a lot of the digital stuff that they did when WWE was really trying to figure out what kind of digital stuff that they had and what was going to work. I thought he was really good for that. They'd bring him in for special episodes of Raw and SmackDown. So this generation knows who he is in that regard. And Jimmy, it's a lot different now than it was when we were kids, because you didn't see a lot of archived WWE footage back then. You couldn't just reach out and grab it. You would see Hogan slam Andre and all that. But it's like every time that we did see that archived WWF footage, it was usually followed with Howard Finkel announcing the winner of that match.
Yes.
So you would get that even more. Rest in peace, Howard Finkel. Man, that's such a bummer. And it did make me happy to see how many wrestlers had went out to see him in the last few years when he was kind of confined to a wheelchair.
Yep, for sure. And it's really unfortunate that Vince McMahon got to a point where he cared more about cosmetic look than anything else.
Yes.
Because we lost a lot of good years of Howard Finkel's talent. And that's not to take anything away from Lillian Garcia, and it's not to take anything away from Justin Roberts, because they both did a good job in the role. But Howard Finkel was the man. And he should have been around longer on television, and he strictly wasn't, because Vince McMahon wanted to go younger, and that's all it was.
Isn't it weird to think, even on commentary now, Jerry Lawler is 70 and they're still having him announced in a pandemic. Bobby Heenan was in his mid-50s when they bought WCW, and they were like, nah, too old.
Yeah, Jim Ross too, and Jim Ross is well younger now than Lawler is now, or well younger then I should say than Lawler is now. Let's move on. So it was last Wednesday, the 15th, the WWE announced all of those staff cuts. One day later, on April 16th, it was reported that the board of directors, the WWE board, declared the company's regular quarterly dividend of 12 cents a share. It's going to be recorded on June 15th. It's going to be paid on June 25th. Now, once again, there was misinformation about this figure, and even a major UK-based news site that I showed Sean reported it incorrectly. It's being reported in some outlets that WWE paid a dividend of upwards of $9.3 million based on 78 million shares, and that's just not correct. It's based on the non-diluted shares, and I don't want to get all complicated for people. The easy way of putting it is, when WWE does stock grant, Sean?
Yes.
Like, hey, Kevin Dunn got 12,000 shares. Those are considered diluted shares. Dividends are not paid on those. And so I believe that the amount of shares they paid out on was about 46 million shares, to the tune of about $5.5 million in a dividend. Obviously, it's a bad look.
Yeah.
One day after they issued the press release, we're going to save $4 million in staff costs. And keep in mind, that's $4 million is not just talent cost. That's overall staff cost. But they said we're going to save $4 million a month. And then the very next day, hey, we're going to issue a dividend for millions of dollars. Let me just say this. This is the unfortunate reality of being a public company. There were people on social media that were defending WWE saying, well, what do you expect? They're a public company. From a corporate standpoint, I have no problem with it.
Yeah.
Because ultimately they have shareholders to answer to. And anybody that invests in WWE, Sean, why do they do it?
To make money.
To make money. And if WWE is not able to keep the stock price up, and if they're not able to pay dividends, then the shareholders are going to take off. And we're talking hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue. And so I understand why they have to do it. And I don't have an issue with them doing it. I don't even have an issue with the timing of it. The problem I have with it, and if you want to talk from a corporate perspective, because everybody wants to talk about this stuff from a corporate perspective, talk about irresponsible spending. Because my issue with this is Vince McMahon and Triple H, to a lesser degree, irresponsibly spent millions of dollars stockpiling talent. They use more guys than signed more guys than they could use. They had more guys under contract than they could possibly ever use. When guys would complain about creative and about either they're not happy with how they're being used or they're not being used at all, and can I have my release because I want to work? Here's a new contract with a raise. They stockpiled talent. They did it because Vince McMahon, in my opinion, has a carny attitude about the business and wants to hurt the competition. And so if you want to talk about being, responsible, corporately responsible, they were very irresponsible.
Very.
And the issue that I have with this is that now we're in this pandemic and guys aren't going to be able to get jobs, a lot of them. And they chose now to do this. And again, I understand why they did it corporately. They got to hit the projections. They got to keep stockholders happy. If they hadn't have stockpiled talent, they wouldn't have had to do this mass round of layoffs. That's the problem I have with it.
Yeah, that's the frustrating aspect of trying to discuss this stuff on Twitter, because people are like, oh, you don't see the business. I'm like, yeah, I do. I can still say that it's shitty that Mike Bennett asked for his release in December 2018, as we discussed. They wouldn't give it to him. Instead, in the summer, they said, listen, here's a new contract. It's 5 years because we're not letting you out of this one. And if we give you this contract, we got to use you more. And Mike goes, well, yeah, I hope. That's the whole point of me wanting to leave to begin with. They give him 5 years. He sees how they use him. Not how they use him, but that they took him off TV after a month. And then he's like, I want to leave again. They say no again, but then in the middle of the pandemic, they're like, wish granted, Mike. Because that's the thing I'm seeing a lot of people say. Oh, a lot of these people were unhappy and they asked for their releases. Yeah, they asked for their releases not during a pandemic, because WWE let them go when there are no opportunities to be had. There are none right now. So no, I don't think it was generous of WWE to give them a 90-day no-compete. Maybe 30 to 40 days in the case of NXT people. No, it wasn't. It was scummy, and their business practices are coming back to haunt them. I, for the life of me, do not understand why it is that they don't want people to get over, whether it be in their own company or outside of it. Because, Jimmy, we know the reality. The reality is, if WWE wants somebody, they have the money. They can go get them. So if they got over really big somewhere else, you know what they can do? They can go out and re-sign Matt and Jeff Hardy out from underneath Impact and Ring of Honor. They can afford that. It's mind-boggling. And look at Gallows and Anderson. And Jimmy, we know the perception of if a wrestler leaves WWE or if they're released from WWE. Gallows and Anderson signed for what Kevin Nash would call above Sting money, and that was game-changing. The Revival were getting that offer too. Look at where the Revival and Matt Hardy are right now, because what if they would have stayed? Mm-hmm. There's a good chance they would have been released. It's mind-boggling to look at this. It's just, don't hoard talent. Don't hoard talent. If you don't have plans for these people, let them go if they want. If they want to stay there and do nothing, then sure, why not? But it's a mess.
One thing I'm really big on in my company is I'm really big on trying to have a vision for everybody and not just look to certain individuals, because you want morale to be good across the board. And to me, I'm really big on not establishing a bad precedent in my company. And again, when you look at WWE, when you look at the fact that Vince sold 85 million in stock at the end of March, when you look at the fact that they knew they were going to be issuing a dividend and they knew that was going to be public, they lay off all these people at a time that they can't get other jobs because they need to, try to hit their profit projections. Morale's got to be in the can when you
Yeah.
do all that. It's
Oh,
got to be.
that's the thing. I had somebody reach out and say, how's backstage news these days? And I'm like, people are chattier than ever, not just because they're bored, but they're not happy with how things are being handled. Sorry to interrupt. It's just,
No,
oh my God.
it's got to be bad. And I really, again, feel for a guy like Drake Maverick. I cannot comprehend the lack of brain cells that are being utilized here. So first, they let Drake Maverick know that he's been released. If not for the fact that they put his name on the press release, his real name, I would almost think that they're working the boys.
Yeah.
Because first they tell him he's released. Then they're saying, oh, by the way, you're going to work 3 more matches, which doesn't make any sense. Then he's a guest on The Bump this week on WWE.com. Are you out of your freaking mind making these decisions? It's really, really stupid. And so tomorrow, I hope, is going to be interesting. I would ask these questions myself, but there's no damn way they're going to take my questions.
Yeah.
But tomorrow, April 23rd, is going to be WWE's next earnings call. They're going to be reporting earnings for Q1. So people need to understand that these cuts that they've made, it's not going to impact the numbers that they're going to be reporting on, because they're reporting January through March tomorrow. But there's questions that I want answered. Anybody listening to this who's got stock in WWE, if you work for a bank, all the better. If you think that you can get on that call and ask a question, I would love to know the answers to some of these questions. The first and most obvious one is, did USA and Fox tell WWE definitively that they are going to withhold or reduce rights fees, or even allege a breach of contract if they don't continue to produce live TV? I would love to know the answer to that question. And Vince McMahon is not obligated to talk about the XFL because they are technically separate entities, but I would love to know, did Fox pull out of the XFL deal, and was that the catalyst for you making the decision to go live because you were afraid that they might do the same thing? I want somebody to ask that question. And then, following up on that, based on his answer to that, why did you pivot again and decide this week that now you're going to do rotating tapings and you are going to tape some TV? All of this, it comes off like it's typical Vince McMahon flying by the seat of his pants. But I want to know. Did USA and Fox, have you spoken to them? Was there a conversation? Did they say definitively that these things might happen? So that's the first thing. I want to know why they contracted so much talent. And again, when it comes to corporate spending, you're talking about shareholders, and now the stock is going up because, they're padding their numbers now, Sean. Why did you sign so much talent? Why did you accrue this expense for so long when there was no conceivable way that you could use all these guys? I want that question to be asked. I also want to know, is there going to be a second Saudi Arabia show this year? Because that's a big chunk of money gone if they don't get that show in. I want to know the answer to that. I want to know, Vince McMahon has said in the past that the XFL is a completely separate entity. And we talked about this last week. We know that the XFL office was next door to WWE's office. We know there was frequent traffic back and forth. We know WWE employees were also working for the XFL. We know that WWE owned 23.5% of the XFL Class B stock, even though the value is probably pretty minimal. I want to know if he still believes it's an accurate statement to say that they were completely separate entities.
And so, because they own 20% of it. So I'm curious to find out how that affects WWE's financials. Anakin JMT says, Jimmy, have you thought about buying stock in WWE so you can be on the calls? He has it. So
I do have it, and I think there's no way they'll take my call.
No.
But I do have it, and I am going to get on the call tomorrow. Yeah. I don't recall what time it is, but I will get on the call.
Yeah, Fightful will have coverage of that. Yeah, there are a lot of questions that have to be answered. I see a lot of weird misconceptions in our chat about Mike and Maria. You all should probably listen to the 30-minute interview that I did with him because he answers a lot of this stuff. Why did he re-sign if he wanted out? As I just said, they doubled the amount of money that he was getting, and they said, we're going to use you more. So financial, creative, both addressed, so that's why it happened. I see a lot of people, And no offense to the person that said this, but it's a real dumbass thing to say. Oh, Maria got pregnant, so they got what's coming to them. No, it's not the way it works.
People have said that, really?
Oh, God, all the time. All the time. It was all over Twitter, and somebody said that in our chat. Saying that's karma is absolutely ridiculous. By the way, WWE knew that they were continuing their family. Mike addressed that in the interview, too. Watch it. Watch the interview, guys. It's very good.
One thing people need to remember, too, is that these wrestlers are people like everybody else. They have mortgages like everybody else, and they've got other bills to pay like everybody else. And so the best thing to do is put yourself in their shoes. Let's say that you're Mike Bennett, and you're making X amount of dollars, and you're unhappy because you're sitting at home and you're still kind of in the prime of your career, and you want to be active, and you want to get out. And then they say to you, and keep in mind, you've got a child, and then you have another one coming. And they say to you, okay, well, how about we just double your salary? Are you going to say no to that? Probably not. You know what I mean? So, and Mike Bennett himself, I saw your interview, which was really good, by the way, and he was very honest. I like that he was honest, and he said, okay, this is going to give us a chance to start our nest egg.
Yes.
And then when they're ready to use me, then I'll go back on the road. But in the meantime, we might as well start our nest egg and prepare for our future.
Yeah.
He's a regular person like anybody else. Why wouldn't he want to take that deal?
We have some super chats. Harold Romero says, if Vince didn't care about the wrestlers when he bought WCW and ECW, why would he still care about releasing wrestlers during the crisis? They're categorically different situations. Nowhere near the same. There's opportunity around now. It's just nobody can go anywhere right now. Back then, there was no opportunity. They're just different situations.
Well, there's a lot more to it than that. So the other thing people got to understand, WWE now in 2020 with these USA and Fox deals, they have more revenue now than ever in their history.
Yeah.
Because of those deals. Back in 2001, Goldberg was making a shit ton of money. Hulk Hogan was making a shit ton of money. Sting was making a shit ton of money, and it was all guaranteed money. Vince McMahon was still trying his damnedest, even in 2001, to not offer massive guaranteed deals. He still wanted his deals to be incentive-based. The only way he was going to get Goldberg, and he probably wasn't going to get Goldberg anyway, because Goldberg would rather sit at home and not work and make the money. But the wrestlers that would consider it, the wrestlers that would say, you know what, buy out my contract, and then I'll sign a new deal with you, they would have had to spend all that guaranteed money in order to get the wrestler out of their deal. Think about the cost they would have accrued. They were not the corporate entity in 2001 that they are now. And that's the reason why Vince McMahon was not going to do it at that time.
Reality of the situation is WWE could run empty arena shows all year and still make an insane amount of money based on the TV deals.
Yeah, so long as the deals aren't reduced. And this is, again, why I want to know if USA and Fox told him definitively. I don't want to hear anything about, well, they might have.
Yeah.
That's not good enough. I want to know, did USA and Fox, was there a call, and did they say definitively that this is going to happen if you don't honor your contract? Because otherwise, why did he pivot again in the last week?
Yep.
So I want to know.
We have several ring announcer questions. Anakin JMT says, Jimmy, where would you put Michael Buffer at on that list?
Michael Buffer?
Yeah.
Oh, he's in terms of all-time ring announcing, I would put him number 3 behind Finkel and Jimmy Lennon Sr. Jimmy Lennon Sr. had a classic voice. If you guys ever watched the Rocky movies, he was in there, and he was a legend of all the old big events. Even Jimmy Lennon Jr. is pretty damn great. I put Michael Buffer, not Bruce Buffer, Michael Buffer, top 5.
See, I like Bruce Buffer a lot, and Arturo says if you guys had to have any ring octagon announcer announce something important for you, who would you pick? I would personally pick Bruce Buffer just because I think he sets the stage for a big fight in this day and age as well as anybody. He's a little more visceral and a little more rugged in his approach. I actually like that, but who would you pick?
I find Bruce Buffer annoying. Yeah, you know what I don't like about Bruce Buffer? Now, I will say this. I like his energy, and he's definitely a voice that a lot of people associate with now when it comes to combat sports in this era. Like a lot of people, Bruce Buffer's the guy they think of, with the "it's time" and all that. Yeah. So I give him credit for that. I find him annoying. I don't know if you've ever noticed that Bruce Buffer, he will emphasize certain syllables of a name even when that's not the one you're supposed to emphasize. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah. And I'll never forget when Brock Lesnar started, and it only takes 10 seconds of research to figure this out. He would say from Regina, Saskatchewan, and the first time that he ever introduced Brock Lesnar, he said, Lesnar! And it's like, that's not how you say his name. It's not how you say his name. So I find that very annoying about Bruce Buffer. That's just my opinion. Just my opinion.
Throwback 27 says Fink was the voice of a generation. You couldn't not turn on WWE TV without hearing his voice and announcing matches as they go to the ring. He is missed. Yeah, he is. I mean, that to me, that's a big piece of history lost. He's a guy that I thought if he had been healthier a little bit later in life, like right now, you want to talk about a podcast guy, a guy who was around for everything. That's a brain that you would want to pick, Jimmy.
Let me say one other quick thing of going back to Michael Buffer. When it comes to the mainstream, I think you undoubtedly got to put Michael Buffer above Howard Finkel because let's get ready to rumble. Michael Buffer is legendary in the mainstream. I'm just
Movies
talking
and video games.
movies and
based
video
on
games.
those.
Yeah. Yeah. So when it comes to that, Michael Buffer's one or two. I'm just talking myself personally, being a pro wrestling fan first. I was always a Howard Finkel guy.
Throwback 27 says, also, it could be an irrational choice by WWE. All these talent-based signings in fear AEW's coming into the scene and making a quick impact as they have. It seems retroactive. It seems like retroactive planning and, like you said, a waste of money. I think it is. I think that they're almost fear-mongering themselves. Like, there are several of the people that they had signed over the last year, and I'm like, why did they sign them?
It was absolutely to try to ensure they don't go elsewhere. There's no question about it. That's absolutely why they did it. And yeah, it's Vince McMahon. It's the same mentality that he had in the 80s with the territories and the exact same thing.
Yeah, it's as I look at that landscape that AEW came into, there was a bunch of talent that flooded, and a lot of people wondered what's going to happen to the independents. Are the independents going to continue to have stars? And then AJ Gray, Danhausen, Warhorse emerged. Now the market is flooded again.
Yep.
I think that, and again, I got to preface this by saying this is a very unfortunate, terrible situation. I think this is going to help out a lot of promotions and probably in the end help out a lot of these people creatively in their careers as well.
Sure. And I will say this too, and I don't want to spotlight too many individuals, but we've talked before about how it seemed that a lot of the guys in WWE were just content. They were happy to be there, all of that. I have seen far too many guys who have been released make videos saying, I'm hungry again.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest with you, I wasn't impressed when I saw that. I thought to myself, what, it took being fired for you to be hungry and motivated?
Same.
So,
I agree.
So a lot of what you heard about, all guys are content and all of that, it seemed to hold true when you saw these videos of guys saying they're hungry again.
I mean, no disrespect to Heath Slater, 'cause I think he's a supremely entertaining guy. That's the rap I had heard on him for a long time, was that he was content, that he was happy getting a paycheck, all that stuff. And he's, admittedly, his use isn't necessarily his fault. I've always said that James Ellsworth is the worst thing that happened to Heath Slater, because when James Ellsworth came along and became the comedy act, they had no use for Heath Slater and Rhino anymore, and that's a bummer. Rhino, you want to talk about a guy who saw it, I got to put over Rhino. He was getting offered double his downside guarantee last year, Jimmy, $500,000, and he said, you know what, how about you double that, and then I'll do it. And they said no, and he hit the bricks. And what did he do? He signed a multi-year deal with Impact Wrestling, and he for sure would have been fired in this round of cuts, Jimmy.
Yes, I agree.
For sure would have been fired.
I agree.
So I've got to put over Rhino, too. Also, he's a big proponent of the fist bump as opposed to the handshake. I got to put him over for that in this day and age as well.
Awesome. So let's talk another Vince McMahon-related story here. The Athletic broke the news this week that Oliver Luck, the former commissioner of the XFL, is suing Vince McMahon for wrongful termination. He claims that when Alpha Entertainment, which is the parent of the XFL, filed for bankruptcy, Alpha filed to reject many of the executive contracts at the same time that they filed for bankruptcy. And that's why Oliver Luck and other top executives weren't listed as creditors in the filing. He also says that the bankruptcy court approved the rejecting of those contracts, which meant that his only legal recourse was to go after Vince McMahon. He says he signed a guaranteed 5-year contract, and he is due the balance on it, which is in the $15 to $20 million range. And he also said, and this is a key point, he said that there was a termination letter devoid of merit. What that means is that he was fired with cause. And I'm assuming that the reason that he was fired with cause is because that was the way out of the guaranteed money. And so now I guess it's going to be, based on Oliver Luck, I guess, has to prove it was without merit and his wrongful termination. I guess it'd be up to Alpha to say that it was with cause. My guess is that this is going down the road of a settlement.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think this is going to see the light of day in a courtroom. I think they'll settle, and that'll be the end of it.
Yeah, and as I was saying, selfishly, I kind of hope it goes because I want Discovery. I want the sweet articles. But I think they're going to settle this for sure.
Well, here's a fun little side note on XFL business. And I told Sean Ross Sapp this the other day, and it's unbelievable, really. So Sports Business Daily reports, and I guess this came out as part of the bankruptcy filings and all that. Sports Business Daily reports that the XFL never got around to signing the contract with Ticketmaster, which is unbelievable. So the XFL started accepting ticket sales in October, right? Tickets went on sale in October. They played their first game the first week of February, right? It wasn't until the end of March, the 31st of March, that Jeffrey Pollock, the president of the XFL, realized that a contract had not been signed because Ticketmaster had never paid them their share of any of the ticket revenue.
God.
Can you imagine? So tickets go on sale in October, and they don't realize until the end of March that they never signed the contract. What does that tell you about the state of operations in the XFL?
Poor management.
Unbelievable. It's unbelievable.
Poor management. And it's unfortunate how everything unfolded for them because nobody could have predicted this. But it is. I hate that happened to a lot of the people because I like the league. I thought they did it a lot better this time around, but that is not better this time around. That was not wise.
I question if they're going to use that to build a case against Oliver Luck in order to prove wrongful or that he was fired with cause. Mm-hmm. I still think it's going to be a settlement, but when you look at something like that, he's the commissioner of the league. Wouldn't it be his job to make sure? And we're not talking chump change.
No.
Ticketmaster owed them millions and millions of dollars.
Yeah, they did okay attendance. They were doing like 16, 17,000 for some of these. Harold Romero says, since so much negative news is coming out on WWE and Vince, do you think AEW, New Japan, Impact will benefit greatly down the road? I can tell you one thing. New Japan and Ring of Honor, from a PR perspective, have definitely gained because New Japan and Ring of Honor are paying their guys. NWA has said, we don't really give a shit what Florida's doing. Ring of Honor said the same thing. We don't really care what they're doing. We're not putting our team at risk. I think that several of these promotions have come out smelling like roses in comparison, Jimmy.
I think that the only true way they're going to benefit is by scooping up talent. I look at a guy like Rusev. He should never have been a release. He's a great talent. I know that you're a big fan of Leo Rush. That's how they're going to benefit. The unfortunate reality when it comes to the pro wrestling business is that the mainstream looks at WWE as being the promotion.
Yep.
And for whatever weird reason, I don't know what it is, they're always under the radar when it comes to negativity. It's like if a pure sport, if Major League Baseball or if basketball, if any of this stuff happened in those leagues that happens in WWE, it'd be a major mainstream scandal. But for whatever reason, WWE is always bulletproof on this stuff. And so I don't think long-term there's going to be any damage done here at all, aside, again, from losing some potentially big talent that could get over somewhere else.
I've noticed a shift in the last couple of years for a few things. One, David Bixenspan, quite frankly, the stuff he does, it gets out to the mainstream a little bit more. Dark Side of the Ring has become a runaway hit. Don't let those 200,000 viewers that you all see on the overnights confuse you. Like, there's a major piracy viewership for these. Like, I think New Jacks had been pirated a million times already. Yeah. And then you have John Oliver doing what he did on his show, spotlighting WWE in Saudi Arabia. They do, and they know that they can get away with a lot of that stuff. And quite frankly, they don't like it when we ask about that type of stuff, but it's got to be answered to. Some of this stuff has to be answered to.
Well, that kind of takes me to my next story, I guess, although I'll be quite frank. At this point, to me, it's a non-story, but I'm going to talk about it because it is making the news. So on April 21st, there was a Board of Orange County Commissioners meeting with the mayor of Orange County in Orlando, Florida, fits under Orange County. So there was a meeting, and at one point, they opened up to public comment. John Alba from Spectrum News Orlando reports that someone named John claiming to be a WWE employee, submitted comment that they're being forced to work the television tapings despite stay-at-home orders. They claimed that they're unable to speak out. They feel they'll be fired if they approach their higher-ups. They said despite sanitary conditions, they can't maintain social distancing. They have to touch others as part of their job. And John wants the government to shut down the tapings so that everyone can follow social distancing rules.
I had so many wrestlers jokingly message me and say, "Hey, John."
Is that right?
I was like, very cute, very cute. Multiple.
Oh, really?
And I was like, I slept in. And one of the replies was, "You're John, motherfucker."
John Ross Sapp?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I got the heads up on this a little bit ahead of time by John Alba. We bounce things off each other. And he's been doing some really good work, especially in that Florida area where he's based out of. And this is one of those things, like, we don't know if it was really an employee. We don't know who it was. I can tell you that based on the people that I talked to about, now this is an approximation, none of the wrestlers are wearing masks around hardly, and about 80% of the staff is. It isn't easy to keep your distance there, but they are trying. WWE's response to this, I mean, it is something that I've heard. I've heard people say, we're not being forced to work, but who wants to walk up to their superior a week after 100 or hundreds of people were furloughed and released and say, I don't want to work? Because there's probably a pretty solid chance that they'll be like, you don't want to work? Well, we don't want to pay you, type of thing.
Maybe, but I mean, honestly, that's not WWE's problem.
Yeah.
You know, like I look at it like this, and this is why to me it's a non-story at this point. Number one, Sean just said it. We don't know if John really is a WWE employee. It could just be somebody just trying to stir up shit. Number two, can they prove that they're being forced to work? And you just kind of laid it out. If they're just afraid to go to their higher-ups, that's not WWE's problem. That's number two. And number three, in the state of Florida, they have deemed WWE to be an essential service.
Yes.
That means that the WWE staff are essential workers now. And so forced to work, I mean, essentially they have to work the same as any other essential worker now. And it's stupid, don't get me wrong.
Very.
But it is what it is. And so I just don't think it's going to go anywhere. But it did make the news, and that's why I thought I better mention it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it was all over the place, and man, it got a lot of play, this, because WWE has been one of the focal points. I mean, they're the only people that are running right now. Impact Wrestling taped a little bit, but I know one thing: if you want your staff to be essential, the one in your pants at least, check out BlueChew.com. I've been touting this every single week. You do not need to be going to the doctor or the pharmacy if you can help it. Having an erect penis and great sexual performance is important, but it's not so essential that you need to put yourself or others at risk. So just use Blue Chew. BlueChew.com and that code Fightful. It's got the same FDA-approved active ingredients as Viagra and Cialis, but you won't be a dope if you take it because you don't have to go to the doctor or the pharmacy. It's prescribed online through Blue Chew affiliated physicians, shipped straight to your door in a discreet package. That way you can, I don't think it'll be discreet when you deliver your package to whomever it is that you're doing your thing with. They're going to be loud and proud about it, and you probably will afterwards too. I don't know what you all do. I know that in my time off, Jimmy, my time outside, I go outside, I look around, I go, and then I walk inside. There's a ton of that going on. But if you take Blue Chew from BlueChew.com and use that code Fightful, you might walk out on your porch and go, damn! My penis is very erect and my sexual performance is fantastic. It's a chewable, so it gets into your system a lot faster than those other guys. So it's ready whenever you are. Pay $5 shipping. That's it. Got to pay the mailman in these days. You got to do it. You got to respect them for what they're doing. BlueChew.com code Fightful, Jimmy. And we have a lot of... Hey,
when you said...
Anakin JMT says, Sean, a woman in North Carolina, got COVID from her pharmacy visit. Speak it. Stay home. See what I mean? It's legit. You all may think I'm just saying this to be cute. No. Stay at home. Don't be being like, you know what, I got to get my Viagra. No, well, first off, piss off, Viagra. Go to hell, Viagra. If you get your penis hard using Viagra, you're no friend of mine. BlueChew.com code Fightful.
When you just said during my time off, I go outside and you're in the middle of a Blue Chew ad, I didn't know where you were going. I didn't know what direction.
Outside is where I was going. One of those. We have a monster super chat from our boy Throwback 27. Big thank you. I love this. What do you think about WWE pandering to the NFL fan, giving someone they're close to, Rob Gronkowski, a title belt during the pandemic? Even if the 24/7 title is a joke, it's a bigger joke than WWE allows him to keep it when that title could be used to give someone else a chance. So I Throwback, although I respect your opinion on that and I understand, one, they got rid of a whole bunch of the 24/7 division, so to speak, just now. And they should do better creatively, Jimmy, but I think that right now, Alex Palowski hit the nail on the head. You could do a lot worse than having Rob Gronkowski on a bunch of Fox NFL skits with the 24/7 title. That's crossover content for them.
I completely agree, and I'll be the first to admit I'm not a big NFL fan. And so I didn't know, and I saw Alex's post as well where he said apparently NFC conference games air on Fox.
Yes.
Is that the Fox thing where they air the NFC games? I didn't know that because I'm not a football fan. But now that Gronk is going to the Buccaneers, I guess the Buccaneers must be in the NFC, right?
Yes.
So to me, it makes perfect sense that if he is now going to be, if his games are going to be airing on Fox because of the team he's going to be on, and Fox has the deal with WWE, there's your cross promotion right there.
Yeah.
So I would absolutely keep the belt on him. I understand the purists not liking this stuff. And I understand, but I also look at the 24/7 title as a joke anyway.
It's a celebrity title. That's it.
Yeah. And so that's why I can kind of let it go a little bit. So, I mean, Gronk the last 2 days has been dominating the news because of coming out of retirement. And so I would absolutely take advantage and showcase that title. And, a guy like Gronk, so long as he's allowed, because he doesn't want to piss off the NFL, so long as they're okay with it, he'd be all over having fun with that. You could have guys in the end zone after a touchdown trying to pin them. You know what I'm saying?
Yes. Yeah.
So they could have a lot of fun with it.
I like that. A lot of people are asking about what's up with Gronk's contract status. I mean, come on, WWE is not going to say, hey, even though you signed with us, don't go play with Tom Brady. Don't do that. Oh, no. Either that or Gronk got one look at WWE storylines and said, you know what, CTE ain't so bad. Let me hit the bricks and get back on the field. Gronk is far smarter than anybody gives him credit for. He's a very smart dude. He's going to a team with a quarterback he's familiar with.
Yep.
Is he going to be around WWE over the next few months? Probably not, but I'm sure that he'll work something in. And
they can also do pre-tapes. I mean, that's not not hard to do. They could even do it while he's at practice or something. You know what I'm saying?
Apparently, I scared the cats with my Blue Chew read, according to my wife downstairs. Harold Romero says, I work for the post office. Thank you. I legitimately respect those people that are doing that. I mean, that is... It's a wild place to be in right now. Rob Wilkins says, $5 says Nails is John. Anakin JMT says, could there be an actual title change during a game? I don't think they'll do it during a game.
No.
I don't think they'll do that. I don't think they'll risk that. But
they would piss off a lot of people if they did that. Plus, you got to get a referee out there, technically. Yes. So I think they will have fun with I guarantee you at least one touchdown celebration is going to be a guy trying to cover Gronk. I guarantee they're going to do it. But are they going to throw a WWE referee out there? No, I don't think so.
No, not at all.
Okay, so I want to ask you about Sarah Logan because kudos to Sean Ross Sapp. You were the first one to mention her name, even though you didn't get a lot of credit for it, which is bullshit. But you were the first one that said, because I guess Ryan Satin had posted on social media, somebody that was released. This was on Monday. Somebody who was released. There's talk they're going to be on the show. You were the one that broke the story that Sarah Logan's name was surfacing around the locker room, and then others came out later on and said that she was supposed to be on the show, and then they pulled her last minute. What have you heard about Sarah Logan specifically in WWE and regarding Raw on Monday?
Well, there were a lot of unhappy people that anybody got released, but Specifically, a lot of people were upset because she's been one of the preeminent company women, does whatever she's told, doesn't complain, works hard, got herself in better shape. There were a lot of unhappy people and a lot of people that went to bat for her. Not only that, Jimmy, she and Eric, last I heard, were still in Orlando, staying with, I don't know who they're staying with, but there are a lot of wrestlers that are staying with friends right now because there are no hotels that are available in the area. So they're staying with other people. You got a lot of crowded houses from what I understand. And Sarah's still there. She didn't even go home. She stuck around. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, there were a lot of unhappy people. And if I were them, if I were Sarah Logan and Eric, and I had to stick around and not go home, and they did that shit with the Viking Raiders that they did on Monday, I'd be like, are you fucking kidding me? We could have spent the last week and a half, 2 weeks at home instead of hanging out with or bunking with friends, which is what I assume they're still doing. I don't know. And I don't know about anything about her being pulled last minute. I was just told what I was told the day of, and that's that a lot of people want her back, and a lot of people want her still there. It's such a WWE thing to not pay off that Riot Squad deal, and they put her over more and mentioned her more on Monday than they had in months. It's them continuing to be weird.
You can't have a 75-year-old man overseeing creative for an entertainment product targeting the 18 to 49 demo. I mean, you just can't. That's just kind of how it is. The Viking Raiders thing. Last week when they beat Cedric Alexander and Ricochet, I didn't understand the decision because Cedric Alexander and Ricochet had just gotten started as a team. They got matching gear. They could be this generation's British Bulldogs in terms of their ability to, pioneer offense and all of that and be innovative. I thought for the Viking Raiders to beat them was short-sighted, but at the same time, at least it was a team that had a winning streak in the past, and it was a team that dominated opponents in the past. Plus, it wasn't a squash; it was a relatively long match, so I could at least accept it, but I didn't like it.
Yeah.
For them, on the heels of that decision to take this team and put them over what could be the hottest team in the company, to follow that up by having these idiots in a car wearing their headgear, chanting Viking Raiders, saying things such as, "We worship Thor," which is something that they said as part of their little bullshit spiel in the car. I saw that and I thought to myself, what in the Sam hell are you doing?
Oh, by the way, these guys? Andrea Lissenberger, who helped write a lot of the Otis Mandy storyline, one of the better executed storylines, especially as it pertains to women, gone now. Yeah. They need all the help they can get from young women, young people who are not middle-aged white guys. They need some help with some of that stuff. They're very lucky they have a guy like Paul Heyman, but if Paul Heyman saw any of this and signed off on it, bad idea.
It was really, really bad. I think they need to somehow find a way to lock Vince in his office.
Yeah.
Just lock him in and then just do the show without him.
WWE should just do a trade. One, they should bring Logan back, but they should orchestrate a trade. They need to trade Usos and Naomi for Viking Raiders and Sarah Logan, because I love the Usos and I love their matches with New Day. I've seen them wrestle every team on SmackDown 100 times.
Yes.
The problem with the Viking Raiders was they already faced everybody 100 times. Swap them. Just swap them.
It's not a bad idea. Like you could do with and why not put Sarah Logan with the Viking Raiders as an act? Why not?
Begging them to do that. Like
why not?
She should have been with them in NXT. She fits in with them, and it reinvigorates her character.
Right. Yeah. I have no problem with it. They could show footage of their wedding when they got married with the Viking theme and all that stuff. Like there's a lot they could do. Okay, so we're going to go to the Stupid People segment for the first time in 3 weeks. I had promised I was going to use other people's renditions of the Stupid People song. This first one is from Rob Wilkins. Going to have to do the old school iPad thing because having Camilla produce hasn't worked out so far yet. So I'm going to say to myself, and hopefully this works, Sean, I'm going to say, let's go to Stupid People.
What the segment's called. You might wonder why we do it. It's not about wrestling at all. It used to be WWE's weekly use of stupid nicknames, which we did hoping they'd stop giving wrestlers lame names. But it didn't work, so we gave up, and a new segment we came up with is called Stupid People, Stupid People, Stupid People, duh.
There you go. How did that play?
It actually played exceptionally well.
Good. Kudos to Rob Wilkins for coming
I
up with
want
that
him
one.
to do a beatbox next time with it.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
There you go. So we're going to call this the Coronavirus Edition Part 3.
Oh, boy.
And I'm probably going to keep doing these so long as people, continue being dumb.
It's gonna
during
happen.
this time.
It's gonna happen.
And not just like civilians, but like government officials.
Oh, yeah.
Need to stop being stupid. So let's go on to this one. This first one. This was posted on Twitter originally that I saw on April 12th. It was inevitable that there were going to be people out there, Sean, and I don't know if these are conspiracy theorist people. I don't know if these are just anti-government people. But we knew that there were going to be people that were going to want to very publicly defy lockdown order.
Yep.
And the first one that I heard of was this moron out of Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. His name is Dan Dix. His Twitter is @DanDixPFT, if you want to look him up and shit on him. He posted a video of himself and a bunch of other people organizing a protest to end the lockdown in Vancouver. He called it a march against tyranny, and he said they, quote, aren't drinking the Kool-Aid. There was a girl with them, and she said, it'd be a shame to sit at home and let the government tell you what to do. That's what she said on the video. Ever since then, I don't know what it is. There are protests popping up in major cities all over the United States. I'm not seeing too many of this in Canada, aside from the one in Vancouver, but all over the U.S. There's protests popping up all over the place. They reopened beaches in Florida. People are packing the beaches in Florida. I saw a sign that was posted in, I believe it was in Staten Island, New York. And Kyler James, who manages Fightful's Twitter, he posted the photo of the sign that they put up to promote the protest in Staten Island. One of the lines on the sign said, if you're sick, still come. It's your right. That's what they put on the sign.
We got dummies going out there and politicizing this. Like, they're waving their Trump flags and stuff. And I'm like, do you guys really think that this is a bipartisan conspiracy? Like, there are people saying, oh, it's to rig the election for this person. I'm like, how dumb can you all be? Do a little fucking research. People showing up with their guns at Frankfurt. I'm like, you can't shoot the virus, dumbass. That would have been literally the first thing we tried in America if it worked. That's the most American thing possible. We already tried shooting the virus.
Wasn't there a movie where there was a tornado and a guy tried to shoot the tornado?
Oh, I'm sure.
Or was that maybe one of the stupid people stories we did?
I'm sure.
Guy tried to shoot the tornado.
It sounds like it fits.
This next one was reported by 11 Alive News in Atlanta, Georgia on April 20. So the governor of Georgia is a real rocket scientist by the name of Brian Kemp. This is the same guy, Sean, who on April 2nd, and keep in mind, by April 2nd, we were all in lockdown and we all had a pretty good idea about, symptoms and about prevention and all of that. On April 2nd, he said that he had just learned that you can be asymptomatic with coronavirus. He said that on April 2nd. So this same guy, Brian Kemp, he announced on April 20 that he's going to reopen businesses in the state of Georgia, like gyms, barbershops, and hair salons, effective this Friday, April 24th. And next Monday, April 27, he's going to reopen theaters and restaurants.
Fucking idiot.
Isn't that
unbelievable? At least my Cinemark stock is going to go up, but damn.
There you go. Well,
Stupid.
Apparently now some other states now, like South Carolina and Tennessee, are looking to also scale back restrictions now. Mm-hmm. And I'll at least give props to a guy like Diamond Dallas Page. He's got a gym in Georgia, and he says he will not reopen.
Yeah.
Even though he's going to have the right to do it. The thing people need to understand, and people are looking too much at New York, because yes, New York has seen maybe a reduction in cases lately.
It's still
in the
real
U.S.
bad.
In the U.S., the death rate is they're still seeing massive numbers. And if I remember right, yesterday, which would have been the 21st, I think was the second biggest one-day spike in deaths since this whole thing started in the U.S. So
I'm very fortunate, and it's not a typical situation for me to be thrilled with a political figure. We're very lucky to have a very responsible governor out here. Every day at 5, he updates our state on the situation, the number of cases, the number of deaths, the type of causes that can be put out there. And for a liberal governor in our state, that's not really something that you see a lot of. but I would say overwhelmingly positive reviews for that, which gives me a little hope in that regard because people got to stay safe. They're going to believe some of this dumb shit they read on Facebook. Just it's 5G towers, you moron. You moron. No, it's not. I mean, everybody knows the 5G towers are used to make the frogs gay, not to give us COVID.
This last one was reported by AFP on April 6th. So New Zealand, and this is going back a few weeks now because I've missed stupid people for a couple of weeks. New Zealand implemented strict lockdown restrictions in early April that included self-isolation. And one person chose to ignore the rules, and it made the news that this person chose to ignore the rules. Any idea who it could have been that would have made the news? They chose to ignore self-isolation rules in New Zealand?
Oh, God. I don't know.
It was the health minister of New Zealand. So the guy who was responsible, at least in part, for implementing the lockdown rules in New Zealand broke the lockdown rules in New Zealand. He decided to take a 12-mile drive to the beach with his family.
They can't even get McDonald's out there right now. I have a friend who's aching for McDonald's out there.
Oh,
Keep
really?
sending her pictures of my flattened fry boxes.
Oh,
Man,
that's
we're
nice.
living good out here right now.
Well, this guy's name is David Clark, and he said afterwards, quote, "I've been an idiot, and I understand why people will be angry with me." That's what he said.
Yeah.
And you know what? Side note, I was going to talk about some celebrities as part of this segment. I was going to talk about how Dr. Phil compared the coronavirus to pool drowning deaths.
These fucking TV doctors, man.
I was gonna talk about how Dr. Oz suggested that if the mortality rate is only, quote unquote, 2 or 3% by sending kids back to school, it might be a trade-off some folks would consider. He actually said that.
Also, he can piss off because now every time I try to Google draws, he comes up. So he can go square to hell anyway.
How often are you doing that? How often are you doing that?
Pretty often. I was a draws fan, okay?
Okay, I could also criticize Ellen DeGeneres for sitting in her spacious mansion comparing self-quarantine to being in jail.
Fuck her.
But these are too easy, Sean. We don't need to go into detail because those are too easy.
Yeah, I hate that shit. I hate it. Anakin JMT says, Jimmy, Michigan had stupid people protesting in the Capitol. Yep. Throwback 27 says, in Massachusetts, the governor closed the schools down, pushed back daycares till June 29th. Sucks for my girlfriend who runs a daycare, but at least they are being safe. People are just being dumb for these things. I agree, and here's my thing. Everybody's like, "Oh, we gotta open the economy." You know what sucks more than being broke? Being dead. That sucks. Or your grandma being dead, or my grandma being dead, or somebody's kid getting sick, or something like that. It's a lot more inconvenient to be fucking dead. And if your answer is, "Oh, well, the mortality rate is only..." No. Piss off, you're a piece of shit if you think that other people dying is just, it's just commonplace, it's normal. That's what Dr. Oz was saying on the air. He's like, the mortality rate would only be like 2 or 3% if we open.
But he was talking about children, sending children back to school.
Yeah. And
he says it's a trade-off people might consider.
And my wife's a school teacher. We're very happy that our governor was like, no school. And it sucks for those kids who don't get to go to prom or don't get to go to graduation. It sucks real bad.
I also got to say, Sean, kudos to your boss for continuing to pay you. He must be a swell guy.
Yeah, it's almost like I'm still working, Jimmy. Wait, do I get like a bonus for working for braving the elements?
Braving the elements inside your house in Ewing, Kentucky.
Yeah. Jimmy, I told you I put off my move to Lexington next year. I am making sacrifices.
Yeah, so last thing on my list. Oh, and I should also mention, go to FightfulSelect.com after this. We're going to do The List Goes On. We are going to talk about Nia Jax. Boy, she and Fightful had a little connection this week. We're going to talk about The Rock. We're going to talk about Impact Wrestling. And that's probably about it. So go to The List Goes On, FightfulSelect.com after this. Last thing for you, Money in the Bank. I got to say, I'm intrigued, Sean.
Me too.
I'm intrigued by the idea. Cinematic ladder matches from WWE headquarters. What have you heard?
I heard that it filmed last week, that it took them all day and night to film, that there was a pretty significant hiccup that stopped filming for a couple hours. They had to straighten some things out. Wrestlers were not too keen on the idea of having to get cold, then bump again. They filmed them both at the same time. But I'm very interested. I think this is, like I said, if you're going to do silly, dumb, irresponsible shit, at least do silly, dumb, irresponsible shit that I haven't seen before. So I'm very excited to watch this.
It reminds me of the Super Bowl ad that WWE
Yeah.
did, which was very well received when they did that Super Bowl ad.
Yes, they
Now,
did.
I have a couple questions that you may or may not know. Did they fly everybody in on the jet, on the company jet?
I don't know about the jet, but I know that people did fly in.
Well, of course they'd have to. Okay. And also, do you know if all of the competitors in those matches happen to be based in Orlando?
I don't. I'd have to take a look at them. And also, I don't know who all was in it. So,
Okay. Because when I think about things logistically, I question if they might have thought, okay, we're only going to book people in these matches that are based in Orlando. We're going to fly the jet, pick them all up in one shot,
sure.
bring them all to Connecticut. Logistically, that sounds like the logical thing to do.
Yeah, it does.
So,
yeah, I don't know who all was in it, admittedly, but I mean, I'll take a look at that whenever they're kind of announced. But I thought that was cool. That was another one on FightfulSelect.com, you guys. I have more news coming up on there all week long. I mean, it's like every day we've got something, either a new podcast, a new bit of news, something like that. Reminder, every Monday I do the Backstage Report podcast. That's like 20, 25 minutes of just exclusive news, injury contract updates. It's stuff that you'll hear at Fightful first. And my Q&A show on Thursday, but now it's the list goes on. Anything else, Jimmy?
no, that's it. I'll see you in about 30 seconds.
We're out.